So I'm going to send you the story of Haramushka.
What?
I will send you. I will photocopy this.
Please do.
Haramushka.
So where were we?
You know Rabbi Gaffney? Rabbi Gaffney's wife once went to America by herself at the show. And she had yeshivas with the Rebbe. So she told me this. So she told me that she said that she heard that the Rebbe said that he prefers women to wear
Shaitel.
tichels rather than wear a shaitel. This was in the very
Beginning.
beginning. So the Rebbe answered her with this following classic answer, which is remembered for all time.
Don't believe.
He said, if you didn't hear it from me, it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You give me that one?
You don't need to know. We'll figure it out.
I
Okay.
printed it just to use up the paper.
Just to use up time. There's two of them.
Okay.
Anyway.
Does that mean we're going to finish it next week?
I think so.
Right?
Okay. Where were we? Right. We said that the superiority of the bird over the behemoth, of the winged bird, is because of its wings. So it can go up very quickly. Okay?
Well, it can go up the cloud.
So the behemoth can also go up, but it has to go up a mountain, okay, slowly. So it's not that there's no elevation in an animal also. It can also elevate, but it takes a long time. You have to figure out a different way to bring it up. But the bird has a way to quickly he flies off with his wings. What this is trying to say is that it's not that a person can't advance in life by taking small steps. You can.
But it's good to take small steps.
It's great, but that's through the feet. Okay? And the feet are very slow in that respect.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about...
Rebbe said it would be great if someone could be wearing jeans and t-shirt today and tomorrow's wearing a kapota and knows the whole of the Kuti Torah. He said, but it doesn't happen in real life. In real life, it's one step at a time.
So no, but there's something better than one step at a time. I mean, if you want to do things more quickly, if you want to change more quickly, faster, quicker.
No, you go faster.
You can't run any faster. There's only so much. So the feet have their inherent limitation.
So find somebody else going up and
so you need wings. You need wings, and we know the wings means that you have ava and yira.
Okay.
That you have love and fear. When you have love and awe and feet, right? That's the idea of Pegasus. Okay? That you have both feet, you can gallop very fast, but you also have wings. So the idea there is...
Pegasus was a Muslim idea.
I don't know what it was, but you see that even the Jews picked it up. Where did they pick it up? The picture of Kfitza Saderech, right, of the Chassidim on the wagon, and suddenly they're flying in the sky with the sus, with the.
I don't think there's any wings on the horse.
It's not wings, but you're saying how can that be? How can a horse suddenly have Kfitza Saderech? How can it suddenly outdo itself?
It's poetic license.
It's not poetic license. It's poetic license in the sense of the symbol. But the symbol is trying to say something. And what it's trying to say is the same thing as it's trying to say about a human being. That if you involve your emotions, meaning it's not just that you do more than you did yesterday, but you do it with feeling. You do it with emotion.
It takes a long, long time before you get to be able to understand you have Ava B'Yira and emotions.
Said it, but the moment that you do, you can do Kfitzat Haderech. You have this ability, inherent ability, to attain much more by the heart than you do just by the feet alone. Okay? So that's unraveling this symbol, okay, between the bird and the, because otherwise why are you even comparing them? I'm comparing them because it's how long does it take them to make changes? How long does it take them to elevate? How long does it take them to advance spiritually? Okay?
I don't know if I've advanced spiritually even 1 inch from the day that I suddenly discovered that I wanted to be more religious.
Say it again?
I feel like I've stood still, all my life.
Since you've discovered.
Since.
You haven't because you've changed a lot. But again, the changes are through the feet, through the actions. The feet represent chush hiluch, it's called. It's an ability, hiluch, progress. There's always progress in life. You're doing more today than you did yesterday. But that progress is linear because you're using your feet, as it were. But the moment you involve the heart and you involve emotions in what you're doing, then the progress is exponential. It's no longer linear. And it's like you're flying. That's how we would say it today. So I think that's a fair translation of what he's saying here. But the only problem is that abema zutar chayute. It has less life force. So if you're only doing things with your heart, the winged creature, the birds, they have a lot less life in them. That's why the shechting is easier. It's just one siman and not two. There's a lot of things that are easier.
Birds are crossing from one side of the world to the other side of the world twice a year.
No, the idea here is not how far they go. It's a question of how much life force is in it. So life force you don't measure by how far it goes. Life force is a different dimension.
You want to say the bigger and fatter you are, the more life force you have?
No, I'm saying that the more complex you are. Because when you shecht, it's not a question of how big you are. There could be a batiana who's bigger than a little, a little calf or whatever. So it's not how big you are, it's how complex. So the batiana, the ostrich, let's say it was kosher. Some people say it is. No, it doesn't matter. In any case, let's say it was.
It's not kosher.
Yeah, but let's say that there's a big bird that's kosher. It's like a big bird and it's kosher.
Turkey.
You'd still shecht it with just one siman. You'd still, it would be a simpler slaughtering.
So you say that because there's only one siman needed shechted, it's less alive?
But so it's complex. It has less chayut.
Interesting. Okay.
So now he says, על דרך זה יובן למעלה, לבחינת המלאכים שנקראו עוף השמיים, וכן הנשמות.
Where's Lamala?
למעלה means in the supernal spiritual world. Now we're not going to talk about animals.
After Atzilus? Adam Kadmon? Where?
Everywhere. Malachim are also in the world of action.
So why does it just say Vader move on? Well, what's the Indian Lamala?
Lamala means when I switch dimensions. Instead of talking about physical dimensions, I'm now going to talk about spiritual dimensions.
Okay.
Okay, so the spiritual dimension, לבחינת המלאכים שנקראו עוף השמיים, וכן הנשמות שמבחינה זו, both the souls and the angels are spiritual. They're not physical creatures. They're not physical entities. They're spiritual entities. יש להם יתרון. They have an advantage. What's their advantage? שיוכלו לעוף ולעלות בעילוי עד רום המעלות על ידי הגדפינה והאווירה. So just as the bird does it with its wings, so the souls and the angels do it with their emotions, with their wings, as it were, which are, like we said, love and fear. יש גם כן יתרון מעלה מבחינת המלאכים שמות הנקראים בהמת הארץ. But there's also, in the spiritual world, there are also angels that are known as behemoth. They're not known as winged creatures.
Who's they?
These angels.
But who are they?
Spiritual entities are called animals. Which ones are called animals? Chayot HaKodesh, right? Right? What are these Chayot HaKodesh? What are these holy
Okay, so
beasts?
we see the ox is on the chariot, but
No, that's their faces. That's fine.
But who are
But what are they?
That's what I'm asking you.
So in the same way that in the physical, there is a distinction between winged creatures and ground ridden creatures.
Right.
They're dependent on the ground, and there are those in the water also. Okay. In the same way, in the spiritual world, there's also the same thing. So there are spiritual creatures, like angels and souls, that have wings, as it were, that move very high up thanks to their love and fear, thanks to their emotional faculties. But there are also angels or spiritual beings and even souls that don't have wings. And there are souls that don't have wings.
So they can look up. They're standing on two legs and they can look up the ship.
Again, they don't have wings, so their avenir is not going to help them. So what do they have though? So they're, like he says, shekocham rav v'gadol. They have great strength. And even though they can't elevate very much, but they're stubborn. They're stubborn like an ox. Meaning, if you set him on a path, that's what he's going to do, and he's not going to change anything. He's just going to continue going straight, never looking left or right.
That's the Yekkes.
Russians, I think.
Yeah.
I think much more than the Yekkes. The Yekkes were spiritual. I don't think they were so...
No, I didn't mean that I wasn't about spiritual. I'm talking about that once they have a path, they follow it. They don't
deviate from their... But they're not so stubborn. The Russians are stubborn. If you want to talk about like ethnic qualities. So it doesn't matter. There's always a mix in every culture. But the idea is that these people, their strength is in their stubbornness. Because of that, they can pull very hard loads. And so because of that, the angels that are the animals, the holy animals that pull the chariot, so they don't have wings, they can't fly anywhere, but they're very strong. They carry the throne. That's on the chariot. And so you have these that they're carrying, as it were. They're stubborn about, you would say, they're about their humanity. It's like that we are carrying the burden of humanity, and they won't give up. So they don't elevate very high. It's very hard for them to be very spiritual, but they have this ability to remain human, to carry the humanity. They don't give up on it. That's how they're different than a regular ox who's just carrying a regular load. Okay? But they're carrying, as it were, the image of humanity. So in the same way that we said about the advantages about the physical creatures, the birds versus the animals, the same thing is in the spiritual realm. Who's
the spiritual oxen?
Souls that are stubborn, that won't give in ever. They don't give up. It's not nice to say names. I'll give you an example though. Okay. You have somebody like Sharansky. Okay. He's a good example. He's not a very spiritual guy. I mean, he's not spiritual, but he's not a very spiritual guy. He never became really frum. He never really sat down to learn. He learns here and there, but it's not his thing. But look at what a symbol of Yiddishkeit he is in the end. Even though he doesn't even wear a kippah usually. How did that happen? Because he's carrying the image. He's not providing for himself. He can't go up very high. He doesn't have that ability. Even if you put him 100 times with the best Rav in the world, he's not going to fly. He's not going to go anywhere. On the other hand, you put these, kids who can't really commit to anything, but you put them in a Kabbalah class, they go nuts. They're like, they're flying high. What happened? Because he's like one of those. He's a fegele in that sense.
Sharansky's kids are from?
I think so. His wife is from, so I think those kids are. But I don't know. I don't want to say stuff. I used to live across the street from him, but so he went to shul on Shabbos. He usually went to shul on Chagim, but he wasn't. It didn't do it for him.
It's like Begin. Begin was Jewish. Begin was Jewish. It would never,
And people think that this is something from past generations. It's not from past generations. It's people that you know, people that we know. They're like that. There's different souls. So that soul, his thing is the stubbornness. Also, he has a minimum that he has to do. But he does it because of his stubbornness. Because he feels that he's carrying some kind of burden. He doesn't enjoy it. Say it like that. He's not flying with it. He's not going anywhere. Okay. So anyway, elsewhere it's been explained, says the Tzemach Tzedek, והכוח הזה בחיות המרכבה להיות נושאות את הכיסא, היינו לפי שהן ממה שנתברר משבירת הכלים. שהוא מעולם הטוב. says, why do they have this power? Because they are the choice that's been clarified, that's been, we had a word for birur, that has been chosen is the wrong word, selected.
Yeah.
They're the select part of the substrate of the shattering of the vessels. So whatever fell down, whatever spirituality fell down into the world, it went deep into the klipa, and then some of it has been already selected out. It's been refined. But because it's really connected to the world, so he says those souls that have this power of the ox, they have this stubbornness, this ability to carry heavy loads, they come from that refinement. In other words, some tzaddik made somebody like Sharansky. He's the product of some tzaddik who did a birur, who did a selection, who did work, who did spiritual work. So when you do such spiritual work, these souls come out. They're very stubborn. By the way, this is the source that Rav Kook loves to talk about, and he builds this whole theory about the chalutzim as being these types of souls, that they're very stubborn, and they're very earthly. There's nothing spiritual about them, but they're the people who built the land of Israel in the early 1900s.
You can prove it from Kaddish.
Which Kaddish?
Iskadar, Vis Kaddish. First you build, and then you become holy.
So,
Don't like that?
No. I don't like his whole theory, but that's something else.
But also, he didn't say that.
Hmm?
He didn't say that.
Yeah, he did. Not on Kaddish, but that's exactly what his theory is. His theory was that first you have to build the physical, and then you add spirituality to it.
And they'll become from because they're,
Yeah, he thought that Eretz Yisrael would make them from. Anyway, I don't think that it works.
They managed to make Eretz Yisrael into.
That's why it became so important in his thought. In any case, so these souls, they're called the souls of the world of Tov. Yeah, but you have to understand that they came out of the work that somebody already did in refining our reality.
But then you want to move from Tov to Tikkun.
What?
Don't.
Yeah, now they're in Tikkun. They're in Tikkun now.
They came out of Tov.
Right. The
So
souls
this,
that...
so this schlepping is bringing them into the world of Tikkun?
Right. No, it depends on what they're going to schlep. If they're going to be pulling a wagon with just a merchant.
No, the Agola HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
That's the hard thing. How do you hitch them up to pull something spiritual? Because they don't understand spiritual things. So how are they going to understand that? Well, there's a big mashal on it from the Maggid. Remember, we've talked about it. The Maggid said that I think the origin is a mashal from the Maggid, that he wanted to explain to people why there should be a Rebbe. And because he had big Talmidim. And the last thing they wanted in the world was to go deal with people. They wanted to sit and learn. They didn't want to. So he said to them, and their claim was, the opposition was, the contradiction or the argument against being a Rebbe was, what are you helping these people? You're not even helping them. Because you're making them do things and they don't understand what they're doing. And what's the point? Because that's how most of the Talmidim of the Maggid worked. Right? That they would pull the Hasidim. He says that's the wrong picture. You don't have the right picture. The right picture is, and this upsets people, but it's the right picture. The right picture is that there's a guy who's going to the market. So he has a wagon full of his goods. And he has a horse. And he has a driver. So he says the guys, so each one of them is going where they're going for a different reason. The horse is going because he put a carrot in front of his head and he tries to get the carrot. Or he knows that when he gets to the market, he'll be given good oats. And that's what he wants. And the driver, when he gets to the market, he wants to get a small sum of money. And the merchant is going because he knows he makes a large profit. It's worth it for a whole month. He says it's the same thing. You can't expect.
Which one's the Rebbe? The wagon driver?
The Rebbe is the merchant. So he knows that everybody's and he knows that he's going to be able to feed the horse for a month because of this, and so on, all these things. So he says, when you know the big picture, you have to act and use what's at your disposal to make it part of the big picture. You don't leave it on the outside. You give parnasa as much as sustenance, spiritual sustenance as you can to whoever can receive it at the level that they can receive. So for the horse, which is like the neshama that is like from the world of toes, just stubborn, very strong, but doesn't understand much spirituality, you have to take him to the market also. You don't leave him saying, he can't, I've never seen a horse talk in the market and buy and sell goods. No, he has his use, and he wants to be part of it too. It's a mitzvah. In the end, it's a mitzvah, and we're going somewhere. And the merchant, the driver, who only knows how to drive the wagon, so he also needs to be part of this endeavor.
So is it a mitzvah to do something without being aware that you're doing a mitzvah? The horse doesn't know he's doing a mitzvah. The horse doesn't have any understanding of the idea of a mitzvah.
You have to have intent to walk, otherwise you're not walking. But that's as much as you need. You don't have to understand that the goods I'm drawing mean this and this thing in the market. You don't have to understand that. There's no reason to understand that. If you can't, you can't. You don't get it. The fact that somebody doesn't understand the spiritual meaning of what he's doing doesn't mean that he shouldn't be part of it. He should be part of it at the level that he understands. So it depends on what you hook them up to. If you hitch them up to a tzaddik, so these souls are tremendously valuable because they can move everything. If you hitch them up to just a merchant, and now imagine somebody who's not going for to make money, but the person in the wagon, he doesn't even have any goods. He's just going to give a shear. So it's even better. The horse certainly doesn't understand anything that's going to be said in the shear. Maybe the oats that's in the wagon he understands, but the shear in the Rebbe's mind, he doesn't understand at all. But he's still part of it. Now he's part of it. So that's how the Maggid convinced them that don't look at it as wasting your time. You are including others. That's what inclusion means. That I can take somebody who's not as spiritually sensitive as I am, and he can be part of what I'm doing. Does he want to or not to? It's up to him. We don't hitch him up like a horse. And he has to decide that he wants to be part of it, but we're open to him being part of it. He has his role. He has his thing to do.
Right, the whole time when he built the yeshiva in Zardun was offered by someone to pay for the whole building. And he says, I'm not taking it. I'm going to take one wall, 1/4 of it. And I says, why? He says, I want every Jew to be part of the mitzvah.
בוקר טוב. כן, תיקח. נפרד השולחן.
בוקר טוב.
בוקר טוב, למה אתה צריך משקפיים? בשביל מה?
כדי לראות יותר טוב.
הבנתי. מה אתה רוצה לראות? דברי תורה?
גם?
יפה.
Okay. ששם היה ריבוי האור. The world of Tohu originally had a lot of light. Yeah. And then it shattered and it broke. So really there's a lot of light in them. But this light has been transformed through what they've gone through the refinement process, into strength. Okay? ועל פי זה יש לומר דמהי תמה אין כן באופין, לפי שנמשכו מזיווג נשיקים, וזיווג נשיקים הוא אפילו כשאין צריך לברר משברת הכלים, כמו שכתוב בעץ חיים שם בעתיה. But then the souls that are like birds, that have ava and yira, that have love and fear, they have emotions in their service of Hashem. Okay? So these souls, they didn't go through this process. They came out from what's called the unification that's like kissing. Right? There's the physical unification. There's the unification in the mouth, as it were. So the souls and angels, most of them come out of, not all of them, but most of them come out of the angels, most of them, and some souls come out of Zivug Nishikin. And interestingly, when it's Zivug Nishikin, a lot of times they don't have children. There's something also missing. They're more like angelic. So something goes together. A lot of big tzaddikim didn't have children.
They're cool.
Hmm?
The Rebbe.
Apart from the Rebbe, you know.
Hmm?
Who did the Baal Shem Tov have?
Baal Shem Tov had 2 kids.
What do you know about what came out of those children? There's a few things, but very few. He only had 2 children. It's very hard for them. The Maggid only had 1 son. It's very hard for them to have children because they have to change things. It's very uncommon that somebody who is angelic also has a lot of children.
Cousin got about 10 kids.
Maybe it wasn't angelic.
They all died.
Then did he have any in the second
5
time?
more.
5 more.
2 sons and 3 daughters.
Is he angelic? I don't know.
Kresenberger, big tzaddik.
Ken, I know he's a big tzaddik. I'm saying, is he angelic? Is he
I
like?
think so.
Okay, could be.
When he got married for the 2nd time, the Derech Hagav, so he was already after Auschwitz losing his wife and 10 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they fixed him up a shidduch with some lady. I don't think she'd ever been married before. And he was older than her. Yeah, so she said to him, listen, she said, you went through Auschwitz, you did this and that and everything else, and you're older than me. What's going to happen is we'll get married, you'll give me a bunch of kids, and then I'll be left by myself to bring them up. So he said, I promise you that I'll take each and every one of our children that we have to the chuppah. So she says, a promise is a promise. Okay, so on that condition she agreed to marry him. So he was a sick person, you know that, from all his woes and Auschwitz. He had problems with his heart. And by the time his 5th daughter was ready to get married, he was in Mayo Clinic in Rochester, New York. And it was very hard for him. He was really poorly. So his daughter's going to get married in Netanya, right? So they brought an ambulance to Mayo Clinic and they drove into JFK in the ambulance. They drove the ambulance onto the plane. The plane flew to Ben Gurion. Plane lands in Ben Gurion. The ambulance goes out, drives into Netanya, gets out of the ambulance in Netanya. He takes his daughter out to the chuppah, like he promised.
Yeah.
Did what he said. He was very sick. I don't think he lived very long afterwards. I met him. He was a very interesting character.
You worked there, no?
Yeah.
It was still there when you worked there.
Yeah. He could have been the Sandy for the bris of my son, because there was a rule that anybody that worked in Laniado, the Rebbe would be Sandy for the bris. David, but no, I had to give it to David's grandfather. And he also said that anybody who ever works at Laniado, when they eventually leave, they'll be very successful in the rest of their career.
That's a bracha worth getting.
Right. So there you go.
Okay. ועל פי זה יש לומר דבר תמה אין כן באופין לפי שנמשכו מזיווג נשיקין. וזיווג דנשיקין הוא אפילו כשאין צריך לברר עם שבירת הכלים, כמו שכתוב בעץ חיים שם בהדיה. So again, זיווג נשיקין from the lips, from a kiss, is a different source of a soul, and then it doesn't have to go through the shattering of the vessels. וצריך עיון. לכאורה משהו שכל המלאכים יצאו מזיווג נשיקין, כמו שכתב בעץ חיים שם. So it's a big chiddush to say now that there are angels, specifically the angels of the Merkava, the Chayot HaKodesh, that they didn't come out of this zivug neshikim, meaning that they went through the world of Tov. That's a big chiddush. It is a big chiddush. And I said, the other person who made this chiddush at about the same time, well not exactly the same time, but a few 100 years later, was Rav Kook. He also makes the same chiddush. So I guess it follows from the Eitz Chaim that you can understand it that way. Because Stam Pshat in Zohar and Eitz Chaim is that all the angels come from Neshikin. from. There's a lot of Torah on it. There's a mimer, long mimer in Tzemach Tzedek wrote in the first mitzvah, Priya V'Rviyah. He explains the difference between in Derech Mitzvotecha. He explains the difference between Zivug Neshikin and Zivug Yesodot.
Yeah, he had a whole lot of kids.
What?
Tzemach Tzedek had a whole lot of kids.
It's
The Rebbe had a
8
whole lot of
children.
kids.
8 children. כן? ומכל מקום, על כל פנים יש... צריך עיון. And I have this חידוש, and it's true. ומכל מקום, מכל מקום, על כל פנים יש יתרון לבחינת בהמה, על בחינת עוף בעניין הכוח והגבורה, הגם שיש יתרון לעוף בעניין האפיפה. And like we said, there's the advantage of the bird over the animal, over the beast, in terms of its ability to fly high. ואפשר לומר, דזהו קניין בחינת שתי שמות, מ' ב' ואב שבשמה, והיה עם שמה, right? There's 2 names, because the first parsha of Shema has 42 words. The second parsha of Shema has 72 words. This is one of the amazing things about Shema. Most people don't mechab in this. They don't have this intent in mind when they say Shema.
What's the in 42?
So he's going to say now. There's a lot of inyan. Usually Membet is like Ma'aseh Bereshis. It's like it comes out of the first 42 letters of the Torah. And then 72 is the name of Das, of Avdallah, because it comes out of the separation between the Jewish people and the Egyptians on the Red Sea, and so on. In any case, אפשר לומר זהו קניין שתי בחינת שמות. So how are we going to explain this? שם מבית הוא בחינת העלאות ובשתיים יעופף. The purpose of the name of 42 letters is to raise something. How do we see this? That when we finish a section in davening, we say the name of 42. We say it when we need to elevate. So for instance, when we finish saying Birkos HaShachar, and we switch into Psukei de Zimra, so before Psukei de Zimra there's a korbanos.
Mm-hmm.
So you say Shem Mem Bet. In the same way, in the Chadodi, when you finish the Chadodi, to show that you finished Kabbalah's Shabbos, before the Chadodi, because the Chadodi was like a later addition. The real addition was the first 6 kapitlach that we say. First 6 chapters that we say on Friday night, that's from the Ramak. It hasn't been around that long. Before the Ramak, the only one chapter was being said. Which chapter? The Mizmor David, Avul Hashem B'nai Elim. And he added 5 more, so it would be 6. And then there's one at the end, Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat. Right, so we have 7 kapitlach from Tehillim all together in Shabbos. So the elevation is between the 6th and the 7th. So Chadodi was added like it's more for the Shabbos. It's like a preparation for Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat. So between the 6 and the 7, you say Ana Bekoach, the name 42 letters. You say it there because you're elevating now from the weekdays to Shabbos. That's why the Arizal, for instance, I don't know how it was by the Ramak, but by the Arizal, he was very conscious of, and he did this every Shabbos, of starting Kabbalah Shabbos when the sun was still in the sky, when you could still see it. And then you wait. And you don't. Right. We do it wrong. Not like he does.
That's the Sephardi minute.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why Chabad does it the way it does. Never made any sense to me. You don't start saying Kabbalah Shabbos when it's dark. How's this Kabbalah Shabbos? I don't understand. So I do what everybody does, but
oh, that's the ox.
I can understand why Rebbes would do it, because the Rebbes have all these preparations. But why does the regular minyan not start 20 minutes before Shkia?
Oh, because they're waiting for the Rebbe.
Seder, that's what I'm saying. When you're with the Rebbe, I understand that. And then, so, I don't know. In any case.
Well, I'm always with the Rebbe.
Maybe he's with you, and he's waiting for you to say Kabbalah Shabbos. Since It's the only time he gets a chance to just say it. And anyway, that's what the Ramak did it for. So the Arizal was very careful to go down into the apple orchard before Shkia. In any case, so the name of Membet is Ha'alaot. It elevates. That's what it's supposed to do. And because of that, it's called, there's a lot of Kabbalistic text with this. They used to use the name of 42 letters to elevate their soul. They used it. Mamash, they used it. So Rav Yitzchak once taught a Yechuda Afifa, that you can fly high using the name of 42 letters. How do you do it? In any case, why is there six letters in each line? Because each angel has 6 wings. Not really. It has 2 wings with which it covers its face, and 2 wings with which it covers its body, and 2 wings with which it covers its lower parts. So those are the 6 letters. Each one is a wing. So you can use them to in a meditation. That's what they did. And specifically inside Shema, where does it appear? V'chol me'odecha. V'chol me'odecha is membet. The initials are membet, with all of your might. And this is higher than the name of 72 letters. It says this in a number of places, not just in the Zohar. And it's very interesting. People think that the holy names come from the Zohar. They come from a lot of places. You have a copy for me? אך להיות המשכת אלוקות מלמעלה למטה על ידי תורה מצוות, זהו בחינת שם עין בית. ונתתי Esav, you see that Esav has Ayin Bet also. Esav Besadcha also, Ayin Bet. Livemtecha, Av Shin. As it says, Esav is Av, when you write it out, it's Ayin Bet Shin. Okay. Why the Shin? Because it's 3-pronged. It's a 3-pronged. Each of the 72 names has 3 letters to it. That's the Shin. In any case, the idea is that Ayin Bet brings things down. So the Mem Bet, how would you understand it then? That's the Of. That's going high. That's rising up. And the Ayin Bet is coming down. That's like the Behema. It's giving you power like the Behema. ואם כן, על דרך זה יש לומר גם כן בעניין נשמות הנקראים נוני ימה ונשמות הנקראים בהמת הארץ. שאם היות יתרון מעלת נוני ימה שהם שתים בעליות ולייחד ייחודים, הרי זה כן בחינת האפיפה של האופין. שנוני ימה הם בים על ודתקסם, מקום שגם כן יתרון מבחינת נשמות שקרים בהמת הארץ, השם רב תבואות וכוח שור. And just as we just explained about the bird and the beast, the same is true about the fish of the sea and the beast. So again, that's their advantage. Each one has the advantage. And like we said, the birds are in the air as fish are in the water. And the fins, which are the wings of the fish, are what allow it to go up against the current. Okay.
So is everybody either one or the other, or can there be both in each person?
Every person is very complex. But you always have something that's the ikr. You always have something that's the main. Even somebody who's very coarse, very strong, spiritually, but very coarse, can't understand abstract spiritual ideas. And at times they do understand suddenly. So you can't say that they're always a brute spiritually. From time to time something awakens. So they must have something more. But in general, normally when you look at them, they have the face of an ox. They don't have the face of a bird.
Yeah, you can tell the difference by looking at people's faces.
The Zohar has a lot on that. The main thing in Chokhmat HaPartzuf in the Zohar, the main thing is realizing which face of the Merkava, which face of the chariot the person has. Okay. So which face do you have? You're the human, you say. The human face.
I have to go and get my wife. I promise I'll pick her up.
Say no. So we got through a lot
It's a
of
very
it.
nice man.
It's very, very
Is
central.
it meat? is it an easier mimer than usual?
It's more
Wait
it's
a
more picturesque. There's a lot more symbology, so it's easier. He hardly mentioned any concepts.
Right.
It's a lot more. You can see that the Alter Rebbe spent. It's a very mature mimer that he understood already how to say it to simple people like us, without using too many fancy words. Okay? Yeah. And the Tzemach Tzedek, now the Tzemach Tzedek is going to get fancy, but it's still there's a lot of imagery to it. Because there's a lot of imagery, it's easier to understand.
Fine. Shabbos Avarach in Iyah.
Good Shabbos to everybody. Don't forget to say all of Tehillim on Shabbos.